What is going on? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to talk to you about ChargePoint. I want to go over some of the recent data, what shorts have been doing, and with their earnings coming out next week, I want to give you an overview of what to expect. Before I get into any of that, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate it. And with that said, let's get right to it. So when it comes down to ChargePoint, as I did say, I think my last video was roughly around here, and I said exactly that most likely it was going to be trending to the 650 range, and that was based on the technicals and the data points. And this is why ChargePoint is the perfect example of why I love to just do some technical analysis, how I interpret a lot of the different data, and how it can be kind of beneficial. So right now, it actually seems to be turning in a positive way. So I'm going to touch on all of that. So right now it did, or I guess on Friday, it went up 3.91%. It did get halted at a very strong resistance point. So starting off though with options. Options is a good sentiment on a broader kind of viewpoint. So based on Friday, $2.45 million in calls were purchased versus 1.22 million in puts. So based on this information, people are anticipating for it to trend up significantly higher. And of course, with it kind of being stopped at that heavy resistance point, that does mean that people are anticipating for it to kind of go into the next range and the next level. So I'm going to touch on all that in a second. But as far as this, if you are optimistic and looking at the calls, this is a grid view of it, has all the expiry dates, the strike prices. Based on this and looking at the September the 8th expiry date, because that is going to encumber their earnings, because in case you do not know, next Wednesday or this upcoming Wednesday after hours, that is when ChargePoint is going to have unveil their earnings. So based on this information, people are anticipating for it to trend easily above $8. But once again, as I always say, though, this is just merely a sentiment. It does not move the stock price. Even if someone bought $1 billion in calls, it won't move the stock price 1 cent. It might obviously change the sentiment, but again, that's kind of what is happening behind the scenes. As far as big money, still not necessarily getting in. The last transactions on the secondary market over $100,000 were on August the 24th. As far as dark pool, still fairly popular as it always is with ChargePoint. And unfortunately, when it comes down to dark pool, it's very much linked to shorting and stuff like that. So I'll touch on shorts and use that as a benchmark as well. But when it comes down to it, like I mentioned, it did get stopped on Friday at a very strong resistance. So as you can see, $7.46 is the pivot. So as of right now, it did close right below that, so at $7.44. So currently trading between this S1 and the pivot. But like I said, so far based on the options data, it is anticipated for it to trend higher into the next range. So $7.46 would be potentially the next strong support once it does break into here. And then $8.20 is going to be that next big resistance, which kind of interestingly enough, that is exactly where the big amount of 35,000 in the options, so the call options. So people are anticipating for it to easily trend here, and depending on their earnings, I think there is clearly some estimate that it might actually be in the R1 to the R2. So I'm going to touch on all of that. As far as this though, so looking at shorts have unfortunately been a very big player in ChargePoint for a while now, but right now short score is currently 86, utilization is 97.46, and looking right here, so far 22.55% of the free float is being shorted, 67.85 million shares overall are being shorted. Based on Friday, the fact that they did return 188,000 shares and it was green, you can always interpret that as bullish. So they obviously, if they didn't feel like it was justified, they'd be doubling down, tripling down, and so forth. But the fact that they did return shares is a pretty positive thing. Cost to borrow average is 11.86%, and that's kind of been normal, or the norm, over the last little bit. So when it comes down to their upcoming earnings, so I'm going to touch on that. So when it comes to earnings, there are several things people care about, one of which is earnings per share, second is revenue, and third is more so the future guidance. And the future guidance of ChargePoint's earnings is going to be probably the most important aspect of it all, but that's just my own interpretation of financial advisor. You guys always do your own due diligence. But when it comes down to earnings per share, historically, they have always exceeded analyst expectations. Currently, there's 9 analysts that have given estimates with a consensus of negative 15 cents. So not really much change as far as that. When it came down to expectations for revenue, currently there is 15 analysts that have given a consensus of $153.23 million. And it looks like it kind of changed a little bit. So previously, it looked like around 4 weeks ago, it was 153.88 million. So it did change from the 153.88 to 0.23 million. So one analyst somehow did change and amend their future estimate on that. And as far as analyst ratings, I do feel after their earnings, there should be a lot more ratings coming down the pipeline, last being only 4 days ago, and that was done by JP Morgan, giving a $13 price target, and Bill Peterson only does have a 33% success rating. So not necessarily the best, but like I said, historically after any earnings, and assuming it is good, then yes, there should be a lot more analyst ratings. And also on a side note, just quickly going back over here, historically it's kind of mixed as far as ChargePoint beating analyst expectations. So the last one on Q1 they did beat by 1.89 million. The previous was a miss, and then they beat. So like I said, it's kind of all over the place. And even just looking on a broader scale for ChargePoint, there's a lot of things coming down the pipeline outside of their earnings on the 6th after hours. There's also this, so ChargePoint's going to be participating at the Goldman Sachs Communicapio or whatever it is technology conference, and then as well looks like they're going to be at the RBC Capital Market Global Industrials Conference, and then on September the 18th it looks like they are going to be at the JP Morgan US All-Star Conference. So generally that should be fairly good. And also on a side note, if you're looking for a lot of good compiled information and for instance transcripts, once those obviously conferences conclude, you can kind of take a look at them all right here. They are kind of an easy tool. So I have a 7-day free trial for you guys in the description below for Seeking Alpha. So let me know your thoughts on, for instance, ChargePoint and their upcoming earnings. Do you think that they are going to beat, and do you think they're going to miss? Because I think the big thing and the big topic is going to be about this. When it comes down to them adopting this, so the NACS. So of course I think that is anticipated for the end of the year, so a lot of people are going to be paying attention to their future guidance aspect of that to see if they actually do or not. So let me know your thoughts on all of that, but I do feel that the technicals in among itself are all primed and ready for good earnings. And with good earnings, this could easily go up very, very fast, because like I said, based on the technicals, they did get stopped at a very strong resistance, which is that transition point from the lower to the higher percentile of the Bollinger Band. Then there's also that 50-day moving average, which is around $8. So yeah, there's a lot of good things that could potentially come very soon for ChargePoint, and yeah, it's just a matter of time. So let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments below. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And one final thing I just want to share with you, take advantage of promos such as this, like I've been sharing with you. Sign up for a free account with Moomoo, which does also give you $0 commission, free level 2 trading, but if you throw $100 at it, you get 5 free stocks. So that is a complete no-brainer, and each stock can be valued up to $2,000. So link in the description below and also the comments. With that said, I appreciate you all watching.